All right, good journey, everyone. Welcome to Space Oats, a Star Wars podcast. I am the Crucial Crew member. Thank you for joining me here on my YouTube channel, the Crucial Crew member. If you're not a follower, which most likely you are, follower of me on my Instagram channel, which is also the Crucial Crew member as well. I do lots of posts for Today in Star Wars, and we do a little bit of that for our weekly show as well for Space Oats, diving into it a little bit more. But tonight we got something special to talk about because it was actually dropped today. We're going to talk about the new Ahsoka trailer that was released today. So we're going to dive into that. We're going to rewatch it. At least I'm going to rewatch it. I'm not really sure about the legalities of that with me posting it. So I'm not going to go ahead and post it up here on while I'm watching it, but we can sync it up. We can watch it together. I'm going to hold off on doing that a little bit because I know some people don't want to know anything about the trailer yet. So as you're joining in, let me know if you want to see the Ahsoka trailer or not, or if you want to talk about it and discuss it. If not, we will kind of forego that until the end of the episode. But I want to leave a lot of time for that because there's a lot in that trailer, and it was amazing. So we'll talk about that. We'll see how long this thing goes as far as the other topics, but we'll talk a little bit about Today in Star Wars, something that was announced today, back in 2000, actually, year 2000. Remember that segment of Conan and O'Brien in the year 2000, which happened way before 2000. So, yeah, this Today in Star Wars actually happened in the year 2000. So pretty awesome. We'll go back to that time and see what announcement was made at that time. We'll also go ahead and talk a little bit about a crucial character pick. I was gonna do solo a Star Wars story, but I decided to skip that film for now because I really need to rewatch that, and I haven't had time to actually go back and watch that movie to kind of get a side character to pick for solo a Star Wars story. We'll go ahead and also skip that one for my crucial character pick. We're going to go right into the Clone Wars animated series. And a lot of people were asking me, what are you going to pick? Is it like the overall series? I actually decided to go with a story arc. And this is a 2-episode story arc. Padawan Lost and Wookiee Hunt are the 2 episodes. Where Ahsoka is captured by the Trandoshans and basically placed on that island with the other Jedi, and basically they're hunted by Trandoshans. It's kind of like a hunting ground, gaming hunting ground for them. And I picked another character from that episode, a character that kind of stood out to me as being a pretty cool episode that survived those 2 episodes. And really, we don't know much about that character afterwards. So, kind of curious about that character and if they ever maybe they survived Order 66. Maybe we can have a continuing story of that character maybe sometime in the future, popping up in some other series. But that would be really cool, like something like Bad Batch season 2 or 3 or something like that. So we'll see if that happens season 2. It's going to be season 3 is the next one. By the way, it's National Mojito Day, so I made myself a nice mojito today for the show. Enjoy yourself a mojito if you have time before the end of the day, if that's your thing. Mine turned out pretty good, so I'm going to be enjoying this while I do the show. So let's get this started. I actually have the Clone Wars animated film on right now, but we'll stop that and we'll actually kind of watch the Ahsoka trailer together. But I want to go ahead and start off with Today in Star Wars as far as the first part of this episode. And I think I do see someone joining in. If you can comment, just let me know that you're here. Say hello. I always want to know if the comments are working. I like to say hello back to see who's joined in. I can't really see who's joined in. I don't know if there's a way to do that on this streaming platform that I use, but I haven't quite figured that out yet. So I don't actually know who's here unless you actually comment. So because I'm not doing this. Oh, it's Katie again. Excellent. Awesome. Hello, hello, hello. So we're going to go ahead and do Today in Star Wars first. Again, I said Today in Star Wars comes from the year 2000. So there's a reason why I'm actually playing the Clone Wars animated film, because I actually didn't know that it was actually his voice that was in this animated film. But this character was in Attack of the Clones as well as Revenge of the Sith, and voiced his character in the Clone Wars animated series. And it was today in 2000, July 11th, that StarWars.com, which was and still is like the bringer of news for me. I always use that as my main source because that is for sure the thing. Sometimes I hear things beforehand and sometimes it's true, but I usually hold off until StarWars.com announces it or I see it on an actual Star Wars feed from an actual verified Star Wars source before I get excited about it. But today, in the year 2000 on StarWars.com, they announced that Christopher Lee would be part of the cast of Episode 2. And Lee's character, who they named as Count Dooku, who we knew as Count Dooku, would go unconfirmed at that point. He was only identified at that time as a charismatic separatist, which is pretty amazing. That's all we knew at that time. And as I said, he would go on to reprise that role in Revenge of the Sith. And then also he voiced his character in the Clone Wars animated film, which I did not know it was actually his voice. We know that there was a different voiceover for the rest of his character within the Clone Wars animated series, and also with Tales of the Jedi. But because unfortunately that was done posthumously because Christopher Lee did pass away before Tales of the Jedi came out to us. But just a little bit of kind of a snippet of something from Christopher Lee with an interview that kind of came from him, because I found this interview that was pretty interesting, and I'm kind of going to read excerpts from this with his announcement of, or his involvement with Star Wars, which is pretty amazing, because Christopher Lee, by the way, what an amazing actor, right? I'm just going to go back to kind of like talking about him in general as an actor, because my goodness, that man was amazing. By the way, Sir Christopher Lee, because he was knighted. So we want to make sure that we give him that honor when we say his name, Sir Christopher Lee. I had totally forgot, but everybody knew him as Count Dracula. He played Count Dracula in a sequence of Hammer horror films, and he performed a lot and acted alongside with Peter Cushing, which is another Star Wars alum, being from Grand Moff Tarkin, as we know him. So he knew Peter Cushing very well. He also played Francisco Scaramanga in the James Bond action film, The Man with the Golden Gun. Not one of my favorite James Bond films, but he was the antagonist in that movie. Obviously, he's very well known to us Star Wars fans as Count Dooku in the Star Wars prequel trilogy. He also played Saruman in Lord of the Rings film trilogy, as well as the Hobbit film trilogy, which I am a big fan of the Lord of the Rings films as well. And he was in there as well. He was actually knighted for his services in drama and charity in 2009, which is how he got that Sir in front of his name there. Again, he frequently appeared opposite his friend, Peter Cushing, with numerous horror films that they did with Hammer Films, and then also had roles in 5 different Tim Burton films, which I didn't realize that at all either. I was trying to go back and remember what films he did with Tim Burton, and I knew he did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He played Willy Wonka's father, the dentist, in that remake classic. But honestly, I'm like racking my brain in his other films as far as Tim Burton. So I was kind of trying to scroll through to see what other films he did with from Tim Burton, and I'm kind of drawing up a blank. They're not like popping out at me as far as those films from him. I did not realize he did all of these. So again, Dr. Wilbur Wonka was Willy Wonka's father. And okay. So he played Pastor Gallswells in Corpse Bride, which I didn't realize. He was the voice of him. Yeah. Oh, he was the Jabberwock voice in Alice in Wonderland. I did not realize that either. So there's two of them. I'm missing some of these other films that Tim Burton did that he was in. I'm guessing he was voices in some of the animated films, which I'm missing here. But he's just been through. He's done a lot. He's done so much. He hosted Saturday Night Live one time. He was on numerous television shows as well. So he has a very, very long list of acting film credits, which is really amazing. But what and a musician as well. He got into music as well and did lots of that. Even kind of that death metal genre as well, which was pretty amazing for him. But going back to that interview, because I found this interview which was really interesting about what he said about his role as Count Dooku, or being picked for Star Wars. Interestingly enough, we know that Attack of the Clones, he really wasn't in the entire film. He didn't even show up until about like 1 hour into the movie. I actually watched Attack of the Clones today, and it's a long time before Count Dooku actually shows up, before they get to Geonosis and he's there. They talk about him a lot, but we really don't know anything about him until they get to Geonosis. He was really happy to have Star Wars on his resume. He had said in an interview, he said, for two reasons. One, to be a part of cinema history, and two, he survived it, which was pretty funny that he said that. So when asked for clarification, he said that his character surviving in the story, he played so many villains that basically he was accustomed to being killed off before the story was over. However, he said that his lightsaber fight scene in Star Wars pushed him to the limits physically. So his physicality, being older at the time, it was very hard for him to do that. His hands moved quickly, but his legs didn't, which you can kind of see how they really put that into place with his lightsaber style, which was really awesome. But he did what he could do. He knew what he couldn't do, and he made that work. They made it work for him. I love that lightsaber battle. I think it's one of the most amazing, especially the part with him and Obi-Wan and Anakin. It was slow moving, but it was so charismatic, just like his character was announced as, that charismatic separatist, and it really fit his style of being a count that we knew him as. Some of the critics of there's many critics of Attack of the Clones. I'm kind of one of them. It's not my favorite prequel trilogy film, but he actually thought that they were missing the point of the movie. George Lucas once said to him, and this is him quoting, that Star Wars has never had good reviews, which is true. There's been always a lot of critics of Star Wars as being great films, but the critics lose sight of the fact that it's not Shakespeare, it's not the greatest actors in the world, which I will agree, and it's not the greatest dialogue in the world, which I will agree as well, and this is entertainment. That's basically what George Lucas had told him. He always said that at that time he was grateful to get that role, because at that time his age, there were many producers that told him there weren't really any parts for people with his age, and he always said to them, well, write them, which is so true. And I think now we've kind of gotten to the point where now film creators are starting to do that. They're creating parts for certain people rather than creating parts around certain actors, which is really awesome to be able to see that actually coming to play. He always said that he said at the time also he got lots of calls to participate in projects, but he really wasn't wild about what was being offered. He said some of them were very dreadful. They were all vaguely associated with either very young people, where he would be a biblical figure, or there was just so many four-letter words galore on every page of the script, which shows a lot about his character. Really wanting to make sure he was in films that were more about the dialogue being smart and sophisticated. I kind of agree with him in that way, especially with movies nowadays. But basically, he said the most important um, word is what got him into Star Wars was a 3-letter word, and that being fun, which you don't hear very often and you don't experience very often. So he obviously had a lot of fun on the Star Wars films. So Christopher Lee, amazing actor. Wish he was still around to give us some amazing characters, which he did. Again, Count Dooku, I think, is an amazing character. I think that's one of the best things about Attack of the Clones. Honestly, I really loved his character in Attack of the Clones. When that part of the movie comes in and he walks in to Obi-Wan Kenobi bound on Geonosis, that is one of my favorite scenes in the film. So I love that film. I love the expansion of his character. I love the expansion of his storytelling within the Clone Wars animated series, the feature film, how he was kind of behind the scenes in all of that. And then the Tales of the Jedi having that 3-story arc of him was amazing. I hope we get to see more of Count Dooku's character. And we wouldn't have that love for that character if it wasn't for Christopher Lee, because he's the one that set that in motion and made that character lovable as a villain. I think he's right up there with Darth Sidious. You want to like him so much, and he's just so evil and so twisted, and he has you believing almost. Count Dooku does with that speech with Obi-Wan. He has you believing because he almost was right. You knew he was right. The Jedi were misguided at the time. You knew it. He was basically telling Obi-Wan the truth right then and there, even though Obi-Wan didn't really know that he was under Darth Sidious as a pupil of his, the apprentice at that point in time. But he was telling him the truth, and Obi-Wan didn't believe him, which is really amazing that he just went flat out and told him. Because I believe he really did want Obi-Wan to turn. He was really hoping that. So really cool character. I love Count Dooku. Really amazing. So, Katie, I'm going to ask you a question since you're the only one joining in right now. How do you feel about the Ahsoka trailer? Have you watched it yet? Can we talk about it? Do you want to talk about it? Or do you want me to move on to something else and we'll save that trailer till the end? That's my thought process right now. So, really started to like him after reading Dooku Jedi Lost. I've heard that's amazing. I've not read that. Again, I'm not big on. I have a hard time keeping up with the expansion novels and so forth. So, but I've heard great things about that novel. So that's one that I really would love to dive into because I love reading about the villains. I love the Tarkin and Thrawn books. Yeah, so I would, and some of the books about Vader behind, just getting into them and their mindset of what was going on in their mind when they're doing these things. It really brings depth to their character. My goodness, only had a few sips of this thing and I fumbling through my words here. Okay, so you've watched the trailer. All right, so I'm actually gonna stop my animated Clone Wars and I'm gonna pull it up. I'm gonna go ahead and watch this trailer again. Katie's saying the audiobook for Dooku is the best way to read it. It's a full cast recording. Really awesome. Did he do the voice? I didn't look and see if he did any audiobook. Is it Christopher Lee reading his character? That's a question that I don't know the answer to, actually. So I'm going to actually bring up the trailer here. If you want to bring up the trailer, if you're in a place to bring up the trailer, go ahead. I'll go ahead and kind of get this ready and set, and then we can watch it together. But if not, we'll just kind of go through this again, and I'll probably kind of watch it through once with my amazement again. This will be like maybe my fourth time watching it. So, but I'm sure you'll see some expressions on my face. So, all right, Katie's going to double check to see if he actually did the voice. So that would be pretty cool if he did. So, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and sync up this trailer real quick. So I got the Disney screen here, and I'm going to go ahead and play it. It wasn't Christopher Lee. It's Ewan Morton as Dooku. we've had some amazing things. So just started the Ahsoka trailer. We started off with seeing that kind of like Lambda class style ship, and then it really starts off with um, oh man, I can't remember their names. Balin and the other Dark Jedi on that kind of Corellian ship, like wreaking havoc. You see Ahsoka and probably what is a Jedi temple. It's a little bit of back of Thrawn. They're at another Jedi temple. The Balin and oh man, I'm forgetting all the names. I should have looked them all up beforehand. I believe the fleet was over Coruscant there for a little bit. We see Hera, Chopper, and the Ghost. Hera meeting with looks like the Rebellion or the New Republic, really the New Republic at this time. With Ahsoka, you got Mon Mothma there. We see Lothal, Sabine with long hair. We got Sabine kind of racing through the outskirts of Capital City there, which is we've seen some of those scenes from Rebels, almost mimicked. And then she's kind of escaping, flying underneath another starfighter. We got a lot of back and forth with Ahsoka and Sabine. Sabine talking with or looking at a hologram of Ezra, and then she goes ahead and cuts her hair, which then Ahsoka basically responds to as a nice haircut. And we see Ahsoka igniting her blades. She's fighting an Inquisitor as well as another droid. Looks like Sabine may have like saved that or created some artwork, the artwork that actually we had available as a photo op in London. We get to see Thrawn again, face front now. Sabine with lightsaber, wielding that, fighting and Ahsoka again battling Balin. Huang's in this one a couple times. He talks a little bit. He's alongside Ahsoka for most of the trailer. So he's evidently with her. We have that Inquisitor again that Ahsoka's battling at the end of the trailer, which is really outstanding. So a lot going on in that trailer. Really quick. It just goes through really fast. So actually, I'm gonna go through this again. We're gonna kind of go back through and break this down a little bit. So the opening scene, again, that kind of Lambda style, what we're used to, that Imperial transport vehicle that we see all the time with the dark side. I actually have it, the old one, the old Kenner style one. It's kind of heading towards a transport, almost similar to those transports that were leaving Hoth, kind of like one of those transports. I don't know the names of those, but it's kind of heading towards one of those. And then the next shot we see is, and I gotta get their names of the characters real quick, because I gotta start like knowing these people, right? So the cast. Let me pull up the cast here. So we have Balin Skull, who Ray Stevenson, sadly, who passed away, plays, and then Ivana Sankno plays Shin Hati. So Balin and Shin igniting their red blades. Now it's been confirmed that Balin and Shin. Thank you. Right after I found it. Thank you so much. I knew you'd be there for me. Balin and Shin aboard this vessel here. I actually want to pull up. Let's see something here. So I want to do the subtitles because I love the subtitles, because then I get to actually kind of like see what I remember, like kind of seeing what they were saying, but I want to make sure that I go back here. All right, let's see here. I'm gonna go back again. But Balin and Shin are basically on this vessel. Balin says war is inevitable. So he knows he's knowing something's coming. I guess he's referring to Thrawn, revival maybe of the Empire, knowing that it's coming, knowing that there's nothing that can stop it from coming. So he's announcing that. Again, we see Balin and Shin on this vessel that they just were heading towards. I'm guessing it's the same ship that they were flying towards in their shuttle. In that shuttle hangar bay, you see X-Wing fighters, you see A-Wings. So it is probably part of the New Republic. They all got like blue on them, so I guess it's like a blue squadron of some sort. He then says one must destroy. We have a Mon Cal as well. Shin is actually igniting her saber, and she's basically going into action at this point, I guess, to kill that Mon Cal. And then we see a couple of rebel officers on the ship. Some rebel, or not rebel. I keep saying rebel because they almost look like the same rebels on the Tantive 4. Very familiar type of scene with them, with those similar blasters. But now they're New Republic soldiers, New Republic officers, and they're firing. And one of them gets, I guess, one of his laser bolts ricocheted back to him, and he gets taken out. And then the other one, same thing, basically happens right afterwards. So those two get basically knocked out. Baylan, again, he started off saying, in order to survive, in order to create, you see him walking down a hallway, similar to that Vader scene in Rogue One, with his lightsaber ignited, ricocheting those laser blasts, using the Force to grab some people, which is really awesome. Using a Force push back in the hangar scene. So going kind of back, right back where we started. So it kind of flips a little bit back and forth. Basically the same scene. I'm sure that this probably takes place all in the first episode, because you know how Filoni and Favreau, they never like to give anything away. So usually everything from the trailers happen in like the first couple episodes. So again, I don't think we're giving much away in this trailer at all. But a great Force push in front of an A-Wing in the background of two officers basically getting pushed back. In the opening scene, there was the Mon Cal and this other older officer. Baylan is basically getting up close to him. He basically announces, "We are no Jedi." Obviously, they got red lightsabers, but this is probably before the igniting of any of their sabers. So he says, "We are no Jedi." No, it's probably after, because now Shin is on the other side of him in the background, actually. We're basically, as he's doing a Kylo Ren, basically, on this officer, the lightsaber going right through him. You see it coming out of the backside, and then he disengages it, and you see that hole in him, and then Shin, you see kind of heading off in the background down the corridor, taking out some of the other officers. And then he goes to follow. The Lucasfilm logo is in red, so really signifying that this is going to start off really being dark, or maybe even the whole series might be really dark, which really excites me. Kind of similar to the last couple episodes of the Clone Wars with the Siege of Mandalore. Remember how the Clone Wars was red? Kind of reminded me of that when I saw that. It fades. The Lucasfilm logo is still there as it fades into Ahsoka, kind of sitting there meditating, and she looks like she could be in a Jedi temple of some sort. She says that she has started hearing whispers, obviously from this meditation, from reaching out in the Force, what's going on in the galaxy. You get a look around at this Jedi temple, I guess, which almost has those like lines of maybe the world between worlds kind of going on in there, the connections throughout the galaxy. A really interesting carving of maybe a what could be a guardian of the wills of some sort. Maybe we're going to learn a little bit about that as that ties in with the world. Yeah, I'm losing it. So she's continuing her thought here. She's hearing whispers of Thrawn's return as heir to the Empire. Obviously, a connection back to the original Timothy Zahn series, Heir to the Empire, where Thrawn was introduced. You see Thrawn, the same kind of scene that we saw in the initial trailer of Thrawn walking towards, I guess, the bridge of his ship. The eyes on the carvings are a little scary when you look at them. Yeah, it honestly reminded me of the Clone Wars episodes, in the Yoda episodes from season 6 of the Clone Wars. Those Force characters, the Will characters, or the Wills. I think it was the Wills that he kind of like reached out with and kind of saw within the Force, and kind of learned a little bit more about the mysteries of the Force in that episode. So she's saying Thrawn's return is the heir to the Empire. We see the above looking down on to what could be a former temple of some sort on the edge of a cliff. Baylan and Shin's shuttle has landed. You see them walking from that shuttle, heading towards that broken down temple. The next scene, you see Shin. She says, "What happens when we find Thrawn?" So obviously she's kind of more of an apprentice, I guess, of Baylan Skoll at this point in time. She's following him. She doesn't really know everything that's going on, what the agenda is, most likely. So she's actually asking what happens when we find Thrawn. We see Morgan Elsbeth, that's her name. Diana Lee Inosanto, who plays Morgan Elsbeth, who we saw in the second season of The Mandalorian when we went to Cordova, and we first saw Ahsoka in the Jedi episode when Din Djarin meets Ahsoka. You see her kind of sitting there meditating in a way in that broken down temple, what it looks like. She's kind of igniting or activating this this device within that broken down temple, which kind of shows the galaxy in the palm of her hand in like a hologram, which is really awesome looking. Baylan says power, so he's answering Shin at this point. What happens when we find Thrawn? He's saying power such as you've never dreamed, and you basically whatever Morgan Elsbeth ignites within that device, it's basically the world between worlds activation point, looks like. Kind of they're igniting that. So we may get a little bit of like pulling here and there and everywhere from throughout time in the galaxy, maybe. Interesting of how this might affect the Star Wars universe and the Star Wars galaxy in this way. It basically surrounds them. You see Shin again getting to the bridge, probably of the same ship that we saw in the opening scene. And we have the captain basically on that bridge, kind of standing up, blaster at the ready, and starts to fire. Shin blocking every blaster bolt, as well as force pushing some other characters off to the side out of the way. And basically she comes forward and probably takes out that person on the bridge. The next scene is basically the New Republic fleet, it looks like. Lots of A-Wings, lots of transport vehicles, Corellian freighters, blockade runners, or what have you. And it looks like they're actually flying over Coruscant. So at this point in time, I'm guessing Coruscant is the capital of the New Republic, because we know that kind of changes by the time we get to The Force Awakens. But it looks like we're kind of going back to the Zahn trilogy, the original Legends series, where Coruscant became the New Republic capital. So most likely that's going to be the case at this time. You got a Hammerhead Corvette there in that scene as well. But a lot of blockade runners and so forth. This is where we first hear Hera. We hear her saying, "I've spent most of my life fighting a war," which again, that contributes to her being within the rebellion, the war for the New Republic, so forth. Obviously, this, again, we're pretty sure that this takes place not too long after Return of the Jedi. We see her in the cockpit of most likely the Ghost. See kind of like a behind the view of her in the cockpit. You see I forget what they call the little shuttle that attaches to the Ghost, but that you actually see out in front, and they're chasing another shuttle, which is kind of looks like it's a a transport vessel carrying something. Don't know what that is, but there looks like they're chasing after that. You see Chopper, which is really awesome. She goes kind of back to Hera saying, "That's why I'm trying to convince you." We then see Hera speaking before a group of individuals, most likely the New Republic, probably the heads of the New Republic, with Mon Mothma there in the center, because she's probably the president at this time, the leader of the New Republic. So this is, again, right after Return of the Jedi. We kind of going back to the Legend series when she basically became the leader. We kind of see Hera's side there. See a close-up of the hologram of Genevieve O'Reilly playing Mon Mothma, which amazing character. I'm a big fan of hers. We see Hera then in the hangar. She's heading towards Ahsoka's ship. Ahsoka's coming down out of the ship with Huyang in tow. Again, Huyang every time kind of seen with Ahsoka in this point in time. Hera saying to Ahsoka, "You and I both know who could help you with this." Then we kind of flash over to Lothal. Ezra's hanging out. You see the capital city off in the distance. You see some X-Wing fighters. You see Ahsoka's shuttle flying in. You see Sabine out on the balcony there of Ezra's former home. Ahsoka saying she's still just as stubborn as ever. Speaking of Sabine, I guess. We always knew that Sabine was kind of stubborn, right? Beautiful shot of Sabine there. Natasha Liu Bordizzo. Amazing purple hair. Love it. Kind of sitting there basking outside in the Lothal air. Knowing that it's Ahsoka probably that's returning. We get that shot of that kind of like freeway, speeder freeway heading out of the capital city, which we saw so much in Rebels. Lots of cool scenes took place there. A smaller shuttle kind of flying down what looks like it's chasing somebody on a little speeder. And then we get a close-up of who that is, and that's Sabine on that speeder. Hera saying, "I bet your master found you difficult at times." We see that kind of that small shuttle flying past Sabine there. Then we go to Ahsoka, and Ahsoka basically talking to Sabine now. This is a different conversation because now Hera is on a hologram in the background. And Ahsoka's saying, "Anakin never got to finish my training." You see Hera as the hologram again. Ahsoka says, "I walked away from him," pointing to the end of season 5 of the Clone Wars when she basically gave up her Jedi path and she walked away from the Jedi Order, which is really the last time that her and Anakin saw each other before Anakin turned to Darth Vader. We're on a kind of like a hangar of, looks like inside Capital City now, of Lothal. Ahsoka standing with Sabine. Sabine very closed off. She's got her arms crossed there. Ahsoka in the background. Again, still the conversation with Hera saying, "Just like I walked away from Sabine." So she's kind of comparing her giving up on Anakin to giving up on Sabine. Maybe she feels like she gave up on Anakin, and that's why Anakin turned to the dark side. Maybe she kind of is realizing that she gave up on Sabine, and she feels bad about that, and she wants to undo that wrong that she did, hoping that maybe Sabine doesn't follow that same path as Anakin. Ahsoka very closed off as well. I mean, they're both really kind of acting stubborn in this way. Don't really know what the cause is of that relationship breakdown. I don't know if we'll find out, how we'll find out about that. What was the cause of that disconnect there? Ahsoka sitting in front of a hologram image of maybe some plans of something that they're going to do. Sabine sitting across from her, saying, "You never made things easy for me." We go back to that scene of Sabine and the speeder leaving Lothal with that other uh, ship chasing, and then we basically go straight to that ship after it passes her. Obviously, it comes down in front of her, and Sabine kind of slides underneath. And then the droid, there's a droid, new droid. We get a new droid, looks like. An astromech droid. Kind of different, similar but different than we've ever seen before. Kind of digging it in that little shuttle. And then Sabine basically says to Ahsoka, "Master." So this is our first thought process that Sabine was getting trained, possibly as a Jedi. So maybe it came to be realized that she had Force potential at some point. Says it very sarcastically too. Ahsoka turns around with knowing that it might have been a sarcastic way of saying it. Then we get a look at Sabine in Ezra's former home, looking at a little hologram of Ezra. Ezra basically stating in that hologram, as a Jedi, sometimes you have to make the decision no one else can. Get a good look at Iman Esfandi as Ezra in that hologram. That holo recording, actually. You see Sabine kneeling down in front of a little table with the Mandalorian helmet. She then cuts her hair as you hear Ezra saying, "But I'm counting on you to see this through." Maybe some last oath that he gave to her. Ahsoka then seeing her again, talking to Sabine, saying, "Nice haircut." So I guess this is a little bit later on, in maybe a couple episodes in. You see Sabine now with short hair standing in front of that mural. Again, that mural was a photo op point in Star Wars Celebration London. You then see Ahsoka, Sabine, with Huang sitting behind Sabine, launching into hyperspace in Ahsoka's shuttle. We then go to kind of a planet that's maybe a shipyard of some sort. Ahsoka igniting both of her white blades. And you now see her fighting a droid, kind of like some kind of battle droid, as well as a Inquisitor. So we do have an Inquisitor in Ahsoka. Yeah, that mural is amazing. The Inquisitor, as that fight's going on, we hear sometimes we have to do what's right regardless of our personal feelings. I don't have the sound up, but I think that's Sabine saying that. She's walking towards that mural, that amazing mural, looking at that part of the mural of Ezra with a low-cat on his shoulder, kind of touching his face. You see Ahsoka's shuttle going into battle. Sabine behind the guns of the ship, taking aim, firing, destroying a vessel, kind of screaming out. We see Ahsoka's shuttle, which this was the part of the extended trailer that was shown at London Celebration for those that were actually at the panel, where we actually got to see the Purrgil. Ahsoka in a different flight suit, which is different outfit. Her saying "buckle up," or Sabine saying "buckle up." They have somebody chasing them around the Purrgil. Ahsoka then saying, "If we don't stop Thrawn, everything will be in vain." She looks like she's saying that to Sabine. Then we see the front of Thrawn, which we actually got to see in the extended trailer of. You just realized they're flying around a Purgle? Yeah. Yeah, that scene was in the extended trailer at Star Wars Celebration that we got to see exclusively. They didn't release that in the first trailer. Same thing with Thrawn's face. We got to see that already. Now, interestingly enough, in that scene where you see Thrawn's face, that character in the background, that helmet looks a lot like the helmet that Ezra used to wear in the beginning of Rebels, which is pretty interesting. Missed it the first two times, yeah. I recognize it, and it's definitely a person back there behind Thrawn. I don't think it's Ezra, but again, it's that same helmet that he wore when you first see him in Rebels as a younger Ezra, like when he was first picked up by the Ghost crew. That same helmet. I don't know if anybody picked up on that, but then on the screen you see in capital letters darkness. You see Sabine on the ground. Looks like she's trying to use the Force. Shin basically is fighting her at that point, and she's saying to her, "You have no power." See a really angry up close of Shin. You actually see that Padawan braid that Shin has, so you can maybe think that she is the apprentice of Baylan. You're getting that even more. The Jedi Padawans used to have that braid. Shin actually has that as well when you see that close up. Then you see Sabine and Shin actually fighting, crossing blades. Again, continuing on that darkness, now in big bold letters, is coming. Then we have Ahsoka confronting Baylan's skull on that same planet with that World Between Worlds activated. Baylan actually saying to Ahsoka, "Anakin spoke highly of you." This is another part of the trailer that really got me thinking, because Baylan's skull, we've never heard of this character before, but evidently he knew Anakin. So did he have a different name before? Do we know him as somebody else? Is this an older version of another Jedi that we know from the Clone Wars, from some other time period? And this is an older version of this character. That's what's got me thinking, who this character actually could be, that maybe Anakin knew. Katie's saying the Sith apprentices don't typically have the braid, though. They don't typically, but so I'm thinking that they're kind of fallen Jedi into Sith. So I almost think that they're even, so he says in the beginning of the trailer that we're no Jedi. I'm also thinking that they're going to say that they're not Sith either, that they're kind of that in between, kind of like Ahsoka is, but they're kind of maybe edging towards the dark side, whereas Ahsoka's not Jedi, but she's edging towards the light side, trying to find this balance. I think that's where all of this is coming into play, as far as the Ahsoka series is going to be really understanding the Force and what is the balance of the Force. That there shouldn't really be the Sith and the Jedi, but we're talking about going back to like the Bendu and the one in the middle. I think this is going to be that balance of power. And there's going to be a lot of talk about that in this episode, in this series. But again, Baylan saying to Ahsoka, "Anakin spoke highly of you," which really makes me think that Baylan is a different person. I'm thinking we know him as some other character. And he's older, he's changed his name. Grey Jedi from Legend, possibly. Yeah, that could be. But I wonder if we know him from somewhere else. Obviously, he knew Anakin. Maybe that's going to be part of the flashbacks that Hayden is going to be a part of, because it's pretty much not really been confirmed by Star Wars or Lucasfilm or anything, but it seems like Hayden's going to be in this in some way or another in flashbacks. So maybe that is going to be with Baylan and not with Ahsoka. Maybe we're going to learn how Baylan knew Anakin. Oh, shoot. I think my trailer just broke. Oh, no, there it is. So then Baylan and Ahsoka start to battle. You see Ahsoka's ship landing on the outskirts of kind of like maybe I'm guessing this is the same planet as that World Between Worlds temple of some sort, just a different angle of it. But it's exploding. Ahsoka's running away from it. She gets to the cliffside. Big explosion. Ahsoka saying, "I'm not here to discuss my past." Then we go to Huyang, who is voiced by David Tennant, saying, "We have a lot of work to do." Hera in the cockpit saying, "Once a rebel, always a rebel." Ahsoka, Sabine sitting next to each other. Huyang in the back. Sabine in full Mando, helmet and everything, shooting out that arm grappling hook to a soldier of some sort, catching him around the neck. Ahsoka again going back to that planet that's kind of like a shipyard of some sort that we saw earlier. That same scene of her battling the Inquisitor and that other droid, slicing down that droid, stabbing that droid right through. We see Ahsoka's ship flying towards a planet with Huyang in the back, battling two fighters. Hera shooting some blaster bolts. Baylan and Shin's ship firing upon Ahsoka as she's chasing what looks like that same droid that she was fighting with the Inquisitor. And we see the Inquisitor on a wooded planet, igniting that awesome blade that they have, and Ahsoka getting ready to battle that Inquisitor. And then we go to the end title scene. So a lot in that trailer. Katie finishing up there. He would have had to have been around the same age as Anakin, since this is several years after Return of the Jedi. That is correct. Unless he ages, maybe he's learned how to use the Force to age slower, possibly. But yeah, just think about maybe some of the characters that were the same age as Anakin. Possibly another Padawan of some sort. So yeah, so we got a lot in that episode. A lot in that trailer. Super exciting. Can't wait for that. And then anyway, I also said I was going to do a crucial character pick, right? So it'll be kind of brief. I'm almost at 50 minutes in. So my crucial character pick for this week goes to, again, I was basically saying that this was gonna basically come because it was one of the recent story arcs that I had watched, and this is one of my favorite story arcs actually, which is of Ahsoka when she gets captured by the Trandoshans, and this character appeared in the 2 episodes which tell that story, and those 2 episodes are Padawan Lost and Wookiee Hunt. And this was one of the characters that was already stranded on that planet. And this is the character of Jinx. Jinx is a Twi'lek, and green Twi'lek, by the way. He was from the Jedi Order, and he was one of the male Jedi initiates from the planet Ryloth. We learned that basically in his training, he and 2 other Jedi younglings, Khalifa and Omer, went on a mission and basically were captured by bounty hunters and taken to that Trandoshan moon, Waska, to be hunted for sport, just as Ahsoka was as well. That trio evaded their captors, and they hid on the island located on that moon's surface, and they've kind of had that hideout in that hollow tree there. Once Ahsoka Tano basically was abducted and dropped off during the Clone Wars, she basically kind of boosted their confidence, Jinx's confidence and the others' confidence in basically trying to seek out the Trandoshan hunters' base and find a way off the moon and get saved. At that point in time, they ended up being able to engage with the hunters and end up freeing somebody else, which ended up being Chewbacca, which is kind of the introduction of Chewbacca to Ahsoka in the series. Jinx with the help of Chewbacca and Ahsoka and everyone else, they ended up being kind of engaging the Trandoshans. They ended up capturing a Trandoshan. Jinx ended up using his Jedi mind trick to have the Trandoshan call for aid to come down, which is when they kind of ambushed the Trandoshans. They ended up almost getting losing the battle, but at that point in time, Chewbacca had created a transmitter because he was signaling his Wookiee homeworld, which was in the same system as the moon that they were stranded on. And by that point in time, Tarful had gotten the signal and got to him just in time as they were cornered. We almost thought that Jinx was going to not survive that, but he did. So pretty cool character. Again, a Jedi Knight. We never actually see him in his full Jedi action. We don't know what happened to him afterwards, because basically that's the end of anything that we ever see him at any point. So we just know that he has the Force. Obviously, he didn't use a lightsaber at any point in time in that episode, but he did use Force push. He used the mind trick, so forth. But basically, that was where he first appeared, was in that episode Padawan Lost, which was in the 3rd season of the Clone Wars. And then the following episode, Wookiee Hunt. Those episodes both aired at the same time, back to back, on April 1st, 2011. The only other time we actually ever see him anywhere is in a card format of the online supplement Clone Cards on StarWars.com, which gave a little bit of brief description of his biography, contained data pertaining to his physical appearance. He was voiced by Sunil Malhotra in both episodes, and in September 2011 was given an entry in the StarWars.com encyclopedia. But we don't really have any other information on if he survived Order 66, where he went afterwards. None of that. So we have no idea anything about him. He could still be out there somewhere in the galaxy. We could have another Twi'lek Jedi at some point appear, other than Aayla Secura, who is one of my favorite Jedis as well. But I always love the Twi'leks. They're Twi'lek, however you want to say it. Some of my favorite. And I would love to see him reappear. Jinx, let's bring him back. Let's bring him back. I don't know if there's any merchandise. I don't think at all available. There's not much merchandise on Clone Wars characters in general, at least not the regular ones. But I don't really think there's anything that you can get from him at all. I don't know. No, I don't think so. I'm like looking around. I don't see anything. Nothing at all that I see. But yeah, I would love to see some extra Jinx episodes. Again, one of my favorite story arcs is that story arc of, because it takes the Jedi you see them in a different level because they don't have their lightsabers, so they really have to use other means of their Jedi abilities to make do and overcome obstacles, because those Trandoshans are ruthless. I mean, they hunted Wookiees, and Wookiees are powerful enough. So pretty amazing for those young Jedi initiates and Padawans to be able to come together as a team, work together as a team, and be able to take over their hunters, become less of the hunted, and overcome that as well. So pretty awesome. So that about wraps it up for tonight. It was exciting news to get that Ahsoka trailer. I'll probably watch it a bunch more leading up to Ahsoka, as well as watch much more episodes of Ahsoka as well. I think I'm actually going to go back and continue watching the Clone Wars animated film tonight. Because you know what? That's where Ahsoka first appeared, right? As a young little Padawan on screen. So again, didn't really like her at first. Not so big on that character when I first saw that movie, but now she is definitely one of my favorite characters of Star Wars, especially of the expanded universe outside of the films. So pretty amazing how that awesome creation of Dave Filoni has just grown and expanded. So we all thank him for that. So there she is, that little Ahsoka on screen. Anyway, thank you for joining, Katie. Really appreciate it. I think Patrick might have been scared off tonight because he did know I was talking about the trailer tonight, and he didn't want to know anything about it because he's trying to stay spoiler free. So I totally get that. I understand that. Um, I have a feeling that there's really not much that was. We think there's a lot in that trailer, but I think that most of that probably comes from the first maybe 2 or 3 episodes, and that's about it. So I don't think we're going to have much. I think there's going to be a lot more that we have no idea um, that's going to happen. And again, we're going to get some flashbacks, I think, and we're going to learn a little bit more about this whole story, this dark, seems like dark storyline that we're going to get in this Ahsoka series. So it looks really awesome at first. Super excited about this. It's a little over a month away, and we're almost there. So tomorrow I'm going to be hitting up Hollywood Studios a little bit in the afternoon, and then possibly even going down to Disney Springs for dinner. Maybe even stopping by Jock Lindsay's Hangar Bar beforehand or afterwards to get some of that Indiana Jones um, specialty items there. So yeah, probably won't do anything tomorrow. You'll see some posts from me most likely from Hollywood Studios and Disney Springs, but probably won't go live tomorrow. Yes, it will definitely be fun. We'll probably be going live on Thursday, though, with my Today in Star Wars on my Instagram channel. So if you are not a follower, follow me on Instagram, the Crucial Crew member. And then until next week, we'll do another episode of Space Oats, a Star Wars podcast, where we will dive into some more Star Wars as we do each and every week. So until that time, have a great evening, have a great week. Do yourself a favor, watch some Star Wars, listen to some Star Wars, read some Star Wars, listen to some Star Wars. Do something Star Wars. But most importantly, may the stars light your way. Have a great night.